Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to join you online, especially that I'm recovering from COVID. Also, I'm going to be sharing with you some of my research that I've recently published in this book on pain and suffering. It came with Lexington Publishing, and it was out by February, I believe, 2022. So it's very recent, and I welcome your feedback. Today, I'm going to be specific in my approach, and I'm going to be trying to answer the question, what do Kufr, disbelief, and Iman, faith, stand for from a pure Qur'anic perspective? Well, to start with, accusations of Kufr, which mainly target outsiders, or apostasy, which target inside violations, have historically formed a common practice in Islam. Some examples out of many examples are like in 1995 when the Egyptian professor Nasr Hamid Abu Zayd was accused of heresy and ordered to separate from his wife. Likewise, Nawal El-Saadawi was repeatedly harassed for views including but not limited to arguing for pagan roots of the Muslim pilgrimage. Similar accusations of apostasy ended by the murder of Farag Fuda in 1992 and by stabbing Nagib Mahfouz in the neck in 1994 after writing his novel Awlad haritna. Until today, the majority of modern Islamic jurists continue to regard apostasy as a crime. Now, needless to say that these accusations don't and shouldn't count if one is to consider the Qur'an as the authority for Islamic legislation, as it was supposed to be. The Qur'an does not only permit freedom of belief, as we read, there is no compulsion in religion. In addition, the only justification for the apostasy punishment, or what is known as haritna, required an external authority which was approved when borrowed from the well-known, very problematic hadith, whoever changes his religion, kill him. However, this is not my argument against the meaning of Kufr from a pure Quranic perspective today. Instead of arguing for Kufr as a tolerable, verifiable term, I argue for Kufr as an unverifiable term by definition if we consider the Quran as the resource. Or let's say it's a term or a name with no reference unless precisely pinpointed by God himself in the Quran. The Quran, as we can conclude from the careful hermeneutical investigation, views the right to judge one's religious status as a divine faculty preserved to God, who only has the exclusive ability to know and the right to evaluate Kufr. In my hermeneutical investigation of the meaning of Kufr, I use a strict methodological application of using the Quran to interpret the Quran, what is known as tafsīr al-Qur'an bil-Qur'an, driven by what I have previously referred to in my first book, Decoding the Egalitarianism of the Quran, published 2019 and then in paperback 2022, based on what I call the semantic completeness of the Quranic language. I seek an ideology-free re-examination of this controversial concept without implementing any evidence other than what has been already affirmed in the Quran itself. This methodology builds on the full recognition and reaffirmation of the unmatchable sufficiency of the Quranic language. It is the sufficiency approved in the Quran itself and makes all external semantic investigation of the meanings of words, terms, and expressions complementary in nature. It might be also useful to remember that while the doctrine of the linguistic ijaz or the inimitability of the Quranic language is agreed upon doctrine by all schools of tafsīr, the leniency in interpreting verses or parts of verses and the tendency to overlook what is considered by some as needless repetition or affirmation in the Qur'an form only some reasons out of many that we can and we should revisit for understanding in Kufr in the Qur'an and as a Qur'anic term. So how can we understand what Kufr and Iman mean in the Qur'an? How can we measure one's religious commitment or faithfulness? It's important to note, I'm going to be, by the way, sharing just some random observations. There is more in the book, just for considering the time. It's important to note that the Qur'an precisely condemns only those who intentionally deny the religious truth after it was made clear to them. This pinpointing addresses the many difficulties surrounding the way we adopt religious beliefs and narrows down the concept of disbelief to a very specific category, namely, those who denounce religious reality after having recognized it as a reality first. More importantly, it motivates us to rethink God's justice. According to the Qur'anic criterion, unless the agent becomes cognitively aware of religious reality as a reality and then decides to deny it for reasons other than genuine ignorance, he or she cannot be considered blameworthy. In other words, ironically enough, no one in the Qur'an becomes a disbeliever before becoming a believer first. But how can we know that someone is rejecting Islam, and I mean by Islam as a monotheistic revival here, which includes Christianity and Judaism? So how can we know that someone is rejecting Islam or any part of it after recognizing it first as the true religion? What if someone is rejecting Islam or religion altogether out of wholeheartedly thinking it's a violent religion or it's no religion at all? Now, unless assessed by God himself, who knows the unseen and what everyone announces and conceals, judging one's faith goes beyond the superficial human abilities and requires a divine ability that exceeds the blasphemy accusations people usually satisfy by bombarding each other with. This recognition is supported in so many places in the Quran. I'm quoting here some examples. First, it's supported by the textual evidence of cognitive awareness and intentionality as a condition for holding the agent responsible and accountable in case he or she decides to reject religious reality. Let's consider the following verse. There are some of them who twist the scripture with their tongues to make you think that what they say is part of the scripture when it is not. They say it's from God when it's not. They attribute lies to God and they know it. 378. In this verse, adding the expression, and they know it, to attributing lies to God would have been redundant if telling lies about God is all what the verse is really addressing. It is the intentional denial of divine message after and not before and not without recognizing it as an authentic divine message. And this is what the text is precisely attacking here. Another example is as we read, people of the book, why do you mix the truth with falsehood? Why do you hide the truth when you recognize it? As we read in 371. Similar to the previous analysis, adding the expression, when you recognize it, to hiding the truth would have been again redundant if hiding the truth is all what matters from a Qur'anic perspective. More, even the rejection of divine signs and miracles, someone as powerful as miracles, is only accountable after the full realization of them as divine signs, as we read in the Qur'an. As we read in, but when our enlightening signs came to them, they said, this is clearly sorcery. They denied them in their wickedness and their pride, even though their souls acknowledged them as true, as we read in 27, 13, and 14. Denial then, as motivated by pride and wickedness, after recognizing the truth as the truth, is what the Quranic verses address, and not denial as motivated by mere ignorance. In another Quranic evidence, textual evidence, in a meaning way, the Quran refers to the following chronological order as we read in. Why would God guide people who deny the truth? After they have believed and acknowledged that the messenger is true, and after they've been shown clear proof, God does not guide evildoers. 1086. True infidelity then essentially comes after and not before fidelity. In other words, belief or Iman is a condition for accusing someone with Kufr. Kufr should be essentially preceded by a recognition of the soundness and the authenticity of the faith that one might take an informative, pragmatic decision to deny and reject. The repeated affirmations in the Quran of the need to make religion as clear as possible is another evidence, as the main responsibility, as another evidence that someone can be taken accountable out of ignorance. It's the main religious duty of everyone, including but not limited to prophets. As we read, we've sent down the messenger to you too, prophet, so that you can explain to people what was sent for them so that they may reflect, as we read in 1643. As a conclusion of viewing the ability to assess someone's faith as a divine faculty preserved to God only, who can exclusively know whether someone is rejecting faith out of innocent ignorance or out of pride, prioritization of worldly affairs, protecting social status, pragmatic reasons, seeking promotion, so forth and so on. The term kufr, unless said by God, means nothing other than a non-referring noun or term or name. This requires us, with no doubt, a serious reconsideration of a long history of using and abusing this term, I would say. The Quran confirms religious accountability as an exclusive divine right. No prophet or religious authority, according to the Quran, is given the right to question, assess, or even evaluate the faithfulness of anyone or take them accountable based on their beliefs. As we read, he knows best who is mindful of him. 53:32. Even Prophet Muhammad is not given that right, as we read in so many places like, so prophet, remind them. Your only task is to remind. You're not there to control them, as we read in 88:21. Let me end by a useful Quranic analogy that explains the precise meaning of kufr, which doesn't stand for rejecting the truth while thinking of it as a falsity, but rejecting the truth after recognizing it as the truth. In a meaningful way, the Quran uses the same term, kuffar, which is the plural from kafir, infidel, in 57:20, in a non-negative way to refer to farmers who cover seeds in the ground, and then uses the same term in the rest of the Quran to refer to disbelievers who are not ignorant of the truth, but they realize it as a truth and they covered that. This is found in كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته, as we read in 57:20. And with this, I'm ending. Thank you so much.